Hello, and welcome back to part 3. So some of them were operating in a level of debauchery that they created in their slavery season. They had become slaves to the rhythm of the environment in which they stepped into. Just like Joseph, they were slaves to that environment. And in that, coming back to them counterfeit chicks, they even had counterfeits that were just like the Pharaoh's wife. They were trying to seduce them into relationships, seduce them. Some of them have high profile careers, and some of your men are just gorgeous. And because they look so good, there are some women that targeted these men. God's giving me this right now. Remember Patrick Swayze's character in Dirty Dancing? It was his job at the summer camp to sleep. He was sleeping around with all of the women, the wives of the people that would come there. And remember what he used to say? That the women would be coming and bringing them phone numbers, bringing him all kinds of stuff. And he said, what was I supposed to do? They would come to me and they would be like sliding me their numbers, sliding me their room keys, sliding me. Some of these men, these women were coming at them so hard during that season. And because they're men, and especially if they had made friends with other guys, that say, man, go ahead, do that. She fine. Oh, she this. And they were sitting up there like, they didn't know what to do with that. And if they had God's heart in them, they probably felt bad at the fact that even these women were coming at them like that. If you remember what Patrick Swayze's character said in Dirty Dancing, he was like, I didn't know what to do. They were just handing this stuff to me. When they first started walking with God and they had these women coming at them, they really didn't know what to do with it. And any other person that was friends with them, that especially on their level, was sitting there like, go ahead, do that. They had gathered success to a degree, especially those people that are in industries like, and it's funny, it's not just celebrity industries. I was listening to a financial professor. He said that as soon as the person found out that he was a financial professor, he said he had been at conference events, meaning these are formal events. Woman walks up to him and exposes her breasts to him. I was like, what? That's the way these women be moving. So it ain't just in celebrity. If the woman think you got some money, I'll even tell you this much. I remember one night about 7 years ago, I was standing with some pastors. One of the pastors was to drive me home, and they were all standing. We were all standing outside in front of the church that night. They'd already closed up the church, but they stood there another hour just shooting the breeze, talking. And the guys were talking about there were wives and women from the congregation that would come up, and they would literally come to them knowing their wives was there, bend down and do certain things, and then trying to act like, hey, how you doing, pastor? So they're in all the places. And then you be wondering, some of these pastors be dealing with sexual sin, but nobody want to talk about it. I've listened to pastors that admitted that they were dealing with those things, and they went to their leadership, and their leadership wouldn't talk to them, but their wives of their leadership came to them and said, he can't talk to you nor pray you out of that because of the fact that he's dealing with it. Yeah. You're talking to a person that went up on the altar one day to pray for the pastors, and the pastors that were running that event rebuked me. for praying for those things. And I was praying for the heart of the pastors. Don't play with me. These people have been set up, put into accusations that help create the prison that they were trapped in. And the ones that are influential celebrities, influencers, they have been in fish bowls of their own creation. And in it have made them feel unworthy. They've had personal conviction as their Moseses, but some were dealing with the condemnation of being prodigals. And they've been fighting between those. Because the spirit of condemnation and conviction, whew, those two spirits right there. You got to understand what is trying to convict you and what is trying to condemn you. Yes, you must repent of your sins. But some of these men are being convicted and condemned for things that they experienced that wasn't something that was supposed to hold them there. But the devil is cunning, and he will deal with their worthiness to even come out of agreement with those things by sending the spirit of condemnation and conviction to them, that they will feel like they are buried so heavily in it that they can't even come to you. And you're the one trying to pray them out. But when they had grown and began to understand the pit that they had chosen and walked in, they came to wisdom by coming back to God, where the Lord could elevate them from that pit. And they began to become spiritually higher than their environment. It's been a slow crawl out. But because we have been praying, they came to revelation to come out of the wrong things that had been putting targets on their backs so that they could begin the process of deliverance within themselves by coming out of alignment and agreement with false projections that the people around them with obsessive sabotaging and narcissistic spirit, when they finally came to the understanding they were actually surrounded by vipers that were trying to take them out all this time. And some of them, just like, was it Paul that got bit on it? It was either Paul or Pete. Somebody got bit on the hand by a snake. I forget who it was. And he survived the bite. Some of them got bit by the snakes, and they survived being bitten. The poison did not kill them. And some of them actually were poisoned. But no plague shall come nigh a child of God and survive. Moses taking the children out of Egypt and going into the wilderness. Some of these men had to go into a second wilderness. They were protected in this second wilderness. Some of y'all thought they weren't protected because they were off for social media and you're used to seeing them. No, just like the pregnant woman in Revelations 12, she was driven into a second wilderness. Nobody reads that part. After the 1,260 days, she came out. She was attacked. She went through a narcissistic attack of the snake, the python, Leviathan. Some of them went through an attack when they tried to come back out. I know what it was for my God ordained spouse. I saw it. And they were driven back in. Mm-hmm. The Lord has been keeping them in a place, meaning, and in some cases, they're in a level of isolation that they are only allowed, just like we are only allowed to do this, meaning whatever it is that the Lord has called you to do, you're only allowed to do that and that thing only that has you presented before people or has you where people can see you. That's the only thing they're allowed to do before they go back into their isolation. And Joseph ends up back in prison because remember, after the female's accusation, what happens? They are driven into prison for a season. Just like that person. God keeps you in that place. God keeps you in your isolation, your slavery, your prison season. He keeps you. But you're coming into understanding of your gifts. Joseph was using his dreams. It was the dream that he had that he told the butcher and the baker. One died. The other one went forth to work with the new Pharaoh. Some of them have been in their wilderness seasons. And ooh, go ahead, Jesus. The Lord's showing me the prophetess I listened to, and she was talking about one time she had had a dream that there was a man of political influence, which the media has portrayed and splashed upon horribly. And in this dream, the person came to her and asked for help. He did it discreetly, but he asked her for help. Some of your God ordained spouses have asked people for help for a thing that they have that only you have the answer for. Which reminds me of a dream that I had. They needed the technical support. And there have been people nearby them that may have the skill to assist them, but you're the source. You're the one that has the instruction necessary for them to get that thing to operate. They could ask somebody to put in the instruction, but you're the one that got it. Meaning, you're the one that prayed for it. You're the one that fasted for it. You're the one. They asked that other person. And you know what the other person did? As soon as they got out of prison, guess what happened? They forgot about him. Oh, he doesn't. You didn't forget about him. You've been praying for him. Like Peter, when he was in prison, then people sat in that room and they prayed until he came out. That's what you've been doing. That's what you've been doing. And that wasn't even in my notes right here. You've been sitting and you've been praying for them. During that season, that understanding of what they are really called to do. And some of y'all was disgruntled because y'all saw the environment and the lifestyle they were in, and you figure, oh well, God's saying that I'm called to this, and I must be called. And God was saying, no, I need you to pray for them to come into the realization of their calling. Some of you God ordained spouses gonna come out of those industries that they were in. It's not to say that they'll be gone forever, but some of them are going to come out. Look at Chris Tucker. He came out and look at what he's doing now. He's doing stand-up in the churches. All the videos I haven't seen of him lately, he was in a church somewhere. So there are certain things that they called to do that God has called them where they're really meant to be for God. And they are returning and accepting, just like when the prodigal finally came back, acceptance of what they are called to do. Some of your God ordained spouses have been running from the true calling that was on their life for years. They knew God was calling. It's not to say that where they were was not what they were called to do for a season. They were gaining wisdom, they were gaining knowledge, they were gaining a skill set. But God is maybe pulling them out of that level of it. And He's going to bring them into their own thing, bring them into what He's designed for them to be, walk in, and experience. Okay? And because of that, they've had to go through a level of coming to themselves with that understanding. And they fought it. But they're going to come to the realization of what God truly is desiring of them, through them, and for them. So I'm going to come back because there's still more to come. Until next time, bye-bye.